Greetings, seeker of truth. Before we begin, take a breath. Close your eyes, if you will. What if I told you that death is not the end? That hidden in the dust of ancient tombs and the silence of forgotten scrolls lies a secret older than any religion, deeper than any dogma, a secret that whispers not of despair but of transformation. This is not a tale of corpses and decay. This is a story of the soul, its perilous voyage beyond the veil of life, and its promise of becoming something divine. You are about to walk the path that millions feared but all must face. A journey the ancient Egyptians prepared for over thousands of years. Come with me into the light by first descending into the dark. Part 1. Origins of the Book of the Dead. Long before crosses and crescents, before temples turned into cathedrals and sacred texts were bound in leather and ink, the people of the Nile Valley held in their hearts one of the most psychologically profound spiritual traditions ever conceived. Theirs was not a belief in endings, but in cycles, birth, death, and rebirth. And central to this worldview was not merely a book, but a living guide, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. Now, the name itself is misleading. It was never a book of death. It was a map to life beyond the physical, a manual for the soul. The Egyptians called it the Book of Coming Forth by Day, and in that title lies a key to everything. This was not about fading into the night, but emerging into eternal light. The oldest echoes of this wisdom are found in the pyramid texts, over 4,000 years ago, etched into the limestone walls of the tombs of kings. They were the sacred formulas, written in hieroglyphs, to help the pharaoh ascend beyond the sky and become a star among gods. Only kings, at first, were seen as worthy of such a fate. But Egypt changed, and so did its dreams. By the Middle Kingdom, around 2100 BCE, this divine knowledge began to spread beyond royalty. Nobles, scribes, even common folk with means began to include these spells inside their coffins, thus forming the coffin texts. What had once been the spiritual privilege of the divine rulers now beckoned the hearts of all men and women. Death, it seemed, was not the great divider but a mirror of how one had lived. Eventually, these texts took form on papyrus scrolls, some over 20 meters long, illustrated with gods, demons, serpents, and suns. These scrolls were not standardized. Each one was custom-made, tailored to the soul of the person who commissioned it. It might contain only a few spells, or 100. It might be richly painted or written in simple black ink. But always, it was created with the belief that the words carried power. Not metaphorical, but real. These were incantations to unlock doors in the next world. But here's the true wonder. The Book of the Dead is not just a document. It is a mirror. It reflects back the very heart of the one who reads it. It does not ask, "What do you believe?" It asks, "Who are you really when nothing is left but your soul?" And it answers with a whisper, "You are what you've done, what you've loved, what you've become." Part 2, The Judgment of the Heart, and Spell 125. Imagine this. You die, and your soul does not vanish, but awakens. You find yourself in a vast, luminous chamber, its walls shimmering with glyphs of gold and lapis lazuli. Standing at the center is a scale. On one side lies your heart, still warm with memories, heavy with your deeds. On the other side floats a single feather, delicate, light, the essence of cosmic truth. Watching silently from his throne is Osiris, god of the underworld, flanked by 42 divine judges, each representing a law of creation. You are not here to be punished. You are here to be measured. This was the core of Egyptian afterlife belief, the weighing of the heart. The heart to the Egyptians was not a metaphor. It was the literal seat of emotion, morality, memory, and essence. When a person died, their heart told the story their mouth could no longer speak. And in the Hall of Two Truths, no lie could be uttered without consequence. At the heart of this trial lies Spells 125, known as the negative confession. It was not a prayer asking for forgiveness. It was a declaration of innocence, a soul's moral resume presented to the gods. The deceased would stand and recite, "I have not stolen, I have not killed, I have not spoken falsely, I have not caused suffering, I have not been greedy, I have not defiled myself, I have not been unjust, I have not shut my ears to truth." Each statement was a spiritual sword, cutting through illusion and self-deception. These were not empty rituals. To recite these words before Osiris was to review one's entire life, every hidden act, every silent choice. There was no priest to speak for you, no bribe to offer, only your heart and the truth it carried. Should the heart balance the feather of Ma'at, the goddess of truth, balance, and universal harmony, the soul could proceed. But if the heart was heavy with guilt, cruelty, or lies, the scale would tip. And waiting nearby was Amit, a terrifying composite beast with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. She was no demon of torture. She was erasure itself. If she consumed your heart, your soul would not burn. It would vanish. No rebirth, no memory, no second chance. You would be forgotten by the cosmos. But if you passed, if your heart was light, if your life had honored the laws of the universe, then a new path opened. One beyond the hall of judgment. One toward eternal peace and divine transformation. For the ancient Egyptians, this trial was not about divine wrath. It was about cosmic balance. The universe, they believed, depended on Ma'at, not as a goddess alone, but as a principle that ordered everything from the movement of stars to the kindness in a stranger's heart. To live without Ma'at was to invite chaos. To live with it was to become eternal. The most haunting aspect of Spell 125 is not its antiquity, but its relevance. We too live in a world where the heart is weighed, not by gods perhaps, but by consequences, by memory, by the inner silence we all confront in the dead of night. Have I lived with truth? Have I harmed others? Have I forgotten who I truly am? The ancient scroll does not offer comfort, it offers clarity. You are the sum of your choices, but in that truth lies power. For if your life can damn you, it can also redeem you. If the heart can be weighed, it can be lightened, through action, through awareness, through love. The Book of the Dead is not a doctrine of fear. It is a call to integrity, a call that echoes even now beyond tombs and time into the chambers of our very soul. Part 3, the Duat, through the night of the soul. So the heart is light, the scales are balanced, the soul is deemed worthy, but the journey is far from over. The soul now enters a realm feared even by gods, a place of shadows, illusions, riddles, and fire. This is not heaven, this is not hell, this is the Duat, the Egyptian underworld. But calling it an underworld is misleading, for the Duat is not just a place below, it is a place within. To the ancient Egyptians, the Duat was not a myth. It was a literal dimension, layered over the waking world. Just as Ra, the sun god, descended into the Duat each night after sunset to battle chaos and rise again at dawn, so too must the soul descend into the unknown. Here, it would face the most dangerous adversaries, not monsters with fangs and claws, but its own unexamined fears, attachments, and false identities. The Duat was described as a cosmic labyrinth stretching across 12 gates, each representing 1 hour of the night. 12 trials, 12 thresholds, 12 faces of the self. The soul moved through a landscape of rivers made of fire, lakes of darkness, walls of serpents, and doorways guarded by gods with crocodile heads and flaming swords. But these were not merely enemies. They were mirrors, manifestations of spiritual challenges one had failed to confront in life. To survive, the soul needed more than courage. It needed wisdom, specifically the right words. In the Book of the Dead, every gate, every threat, every moment of confusion had a corresponding spell. These were not poetic metaphors. To the Egyptians, the correct spell was a spiritual key, a passphrase in the language of gods. Some spells stilled the flames, some blinded the serpent, some froze the blade midair. The soul would recite, "I am he who is pure. I know the secret name. Let me pass unharmed." Because in the Duat, to name a thing was to master it. Every guardian demanded recognition. Every obstacle required understanding. This wasn't just about memory, it was a test of spiritual readiness. Had the soul truly studied the mysteries? Had it recognized the truth beneath illusion? But the Duat was more than danger. It was a forge. As the soul passed each gate, it shed old identities, burned off ignorance, remembered forgotten truths. Some scrolls speak of the soul regaining memory of past lives, meeting divine beings who offered guidance, or uniting with ancestral spirits long departed. Other souls would falter, trapped in illusions or swallowed by shadow beasts that fed on fear and confusion. And yet even failure held meaning. The Duat was not static. It did not condemn forever. A soul that wandered in confusion could awaken if it remembered its name, its purpose, its inner light. In this way, the Duat resembled a dream, frightening, symbolic, shifting, yes, but always reflective of the traveler's own psyche. At the heart of the Duat lay the most terrifying adversary, Apep, or Apophis, the serpent of primordial chaos. Apep was not evil in a moral sense. He was uncreation, disorder, the scream at the edge of existence. Ra faced him every night, and every soul too would meet him, face to face. This was the final trial. Could the soul withstand the force that unravels all meaning? The Book of the Dead offered chants, incantations, and magical fire to bind Apep. But beyond these, the real weapon was inner stability. The soul had to stand firm, to declare, "I am the flame that purifies. I am the light that cannot be extinguished. I am one with Ra." This was not arrogance, it was spiritual alchemy. The soul, by aligning itself with divine archetypes, could survive what otherwise would destroy it. For Apep was not outside alone. He also lived within, the voice of despair, the pull of self-doubt, the fog of forgetfulness. Yet the duat was not a punishment, it was a purification, a classroom, a crucible. Only by walking through darkness could the soul become light. Only by passing the test of truth, name, and courage could it earn the right to rise. At the final gate, the soul emerged, not broken, but transformed. It was no longer what it had been. It now bore divine traits. It had taken the form of light, falcon, star, flame, lotus, whatever aspect best reflected its new nature. The duat had not destroyed it, it had revealed it. Part 4. Becoming Osiris, Divine Resurrection in the Field of Reeds. The soul has passed through the darkness. It has spoken the names. It has survived the flames, silenced the serpents, and bound the forces of chaos. What remains is no longer just a soul. It is a spark of divinity. The ancient Egyptians believed that this moment marked not salvation, but transformation. The dead did not return to who they once were. They became something new, something sacred, something eternal. They became Osiris. To understand what this meant, we must understand who Osiris was. In Egyptian myth, Osiris was the god of the dead. Yes, but more importantly, he was the god of rebirth. He had been killed, dismembered by his jealous brother Seth, and brought back to life by the magic and devotion of his sister wife Isis. Osiris was the first to die and the first to rise again. He became the template for all souls seeking resurrection. So when the Book of the Dead proclaims, "I am Osiris," it is not poetic metaphor, it is literal identification. The soul, having been weighed, judged, purified, and reborn, now takes on the essence of a god. In one passage, the soul declares, "My soul is divine. My limbs are the limbs of the gods. I rise at dawn. I set at twilight. I shine like the imperishable stars." The newly divine soul is no longer bound to the earth or even to its past. It may now take many forms: hawk, heron, lotus, flame, star. These were not symbolic flourishes. They represented levels of consciousness and divine access. The soul could sail with Ra in the solar boat, defending the sun from chaos. It could visit celestial temples, commune with gods, or return to earth as a guardian spirit watching over the living. But for many, the most cherished destination lay beyond all glory and power, a paradise called the Field of Reeds, or Aru. The Field of Reeds was not an abstract heaven in the clouds. It was a perfected mirror of life in Egypt, a place of endless green fields, calm flowing waters, gentle breezes, and eternal light. There was no hunger, no sorrow, no suffering. Here the soul could walk barefoot through warm soil, reunite with loved ones, embrace ancestors long gone, and harvest crops that grew without toil. There was still work, yes, but it was joyful, meaningful, eternal. Some scrolls mention the Ushapti, tiny figurines buried with the dead, carved in human form. These magical helpers would spring to life in the afterlife and assist the soul in its tasks. They represented abundance, dignity, and the idea that no one entered eternity alone. And yet, the Field of Reeds was not a fixed reward. It was a reflection of the soul's readiness. Each soul's paradise looked different. For some, it might be a quiet home with family. For others, an eternal library of wisdom. The gods, it was said, tailored paradise to each soul's truth. The afterlife was not mass-produced. It was intimate, personal, and conscious. But even this was not the end. For the Egyptians, eternity was not a resting place, it was a process. The divine soul continued to evolve. It could rise higher, join Ra, become a protector of cosmic balance, or even return to guide descendants. Some souls visited Earth in dreams, others became stars. One's legacy lived not just in memory, but in presence. And central to this presence was the name, the Ren. The Ren was not just an identifier, it was the essence. If the name was remembered, spoken, and honored, the soul endured. If the name was forgotten, the soul risked a second death, a fading into nothingness. That is why tombs were inscribed, scrolls preserved, statues carved, to ensure that the name lived on. Even the gods were bound by this truth. In one myth, Isis gains power over Ra by learning his secret name, proving that names held the key to destiny itself. Thus, the final teaching of the Book of the Dead is not just about afterlife mechanics. It is a profound declaration. To live truly is to live with truth. To die well is to be remembered, and to be divine is to become part of the eternal rhythm of the cosmos. The soul that walks through death and emerges as Osiris does not rest in silence. It becomes a beacon, a presence, a light that others may follow. Part 5. Why this ancient book still matters today. Thousands of years have passed. The sands of Egypt have shifted. Empires have risen and crumbled. Languages have changed. Yet the Book of the Dead remains, its symbols still etched on forgotten tombs, its words still echoing in papyrus and stone. Why? What can a book written by priests and scribes who worshipped falcon-headed gods, who lived among pyramids and pharaohs, possibly offer to a modern world of skyscrapers, algorithms, and electric light, everything? Because beneath the ink and magic spells, beneath the mythologies and rituals, lies a question so ancient, so essential, it never stopped haunting us. Have I lived a life that matters? The Book of the Dead is not just a religious artifact. It is a mirror. It doesn't teach you what to believe. It asks you to look at who you are when all masks fall away. In a world obsessed with wealth, speed, power, and distraction, this ancient scroll dares to speak a forgotten truth, that your worth is not measured by status, but by the weight or lightness of your heart. In a culture where blame is easier than self-reflection, and where spiritual emptiness is masked by digital noise, the Book of the Dead becomes revolutionary. It doesn't offer salvation through others. It demands accountability. I have not stolen. I have not lied. I have not ignored suffering. These are not dusty commandments. They are a soul's self-audit. The negative confession is a concept modern spirituality would do well to rediscover, not as a performance, but as a daily practice of conscious living. What would the world look like if, before sleep, we asked ourselves, was my heart in balance today? Not perfect, not sinless, just honest. And in doing so, the ancient Egyptian worldview begins to feel eerily modern. The Duat, with all its chaos and transformation, mirrors the inner world of those battling depression, grief, trauma. The journey through 12 gates becomes the journey through 12 memories, 12 regrets, 12 wounds. The monsters are no longer crocodiles and serpents, but anxiety, guilt, self-doubt. But the message is the same. You can survive this. You can speak truth. You can remember your name. You can rise. And perhaps most powerfully, the Egyptian afterlife is not about perfection, but transformation. The soul doesn't have to be flawless. It has to be willing. It has to be courageous enough to walk through darkness, wise enough to recognize illusion, humble enough to admit fault, and brave enough to say, I am becoming. This is not just about death. It is about living fully, now. In the end, the Book of the Dead is a guide, not through death, but through the death of illusion, through the ego's unraveling, through the awakening of inner truth. It is less a roadmap and more a torch. And in its light, you begin to see that life is not a line, but a spiral, that you have walked this path before, that you are walking it now, and that somewhere just beyond the veil you are already divine, waiting to remember. So as you close this story, don't see it as the end. See it as a reflection. You too are on a journey, and perhaps, just perhaps, it is not the gods who must judge your heart, but you.